Hi, everybody. Matthew here, and this is the first recording of my new video blog, which I'm calling Multidimensional Moments. And the intention here is to just record whenever the inspiration strikes me here. And my hope is that, I guess the plan is to try to share with you my own personal practice of archetypal astrology. You know, how I learned it from Rick Tarnas, and give you a kind of inside look into my own personal process of how I've cultivated my awareness of the archetypes. And the main way that I learned to do this was through deep encounters with multimedia. You know, whether that's listening to an amazing musician and then looking at that musician's chart, or watching an amazing film and then looking at the director's chart or the actor's charts. When I say amazing film, or I guess I should add that by that I mean films that just really powerfully move me, or pieces of music that powerfully move me. And I guess that's the general encouragement, is to explore the astrology of the art, music, films, novels, historical periods that most impress you, the ones that you have the most excitement around, the ones that turn you on. And this doesn't have to be the great works of art, although the quote great works of art, it can be anything, anything that moves you artistically. And so this is what I'm going to do in this blog. I want to share the experiences that I have on my own astrological path and give you a sense of how I do my own practice. And I also want to combine that with the general philosophy that I'm trying to teach here on the website, which I'm calling a medicine path, the medicine path philosophy, which is where you trust that the universe wants to bring you the medicines that you need, and that at certain times some medicines are more available. And when those medicines are more available, there's a caring aspect of the universe that wants to bring those medicines to you. That abundance of medicine wants to come into your life. This is what I believe after studying astrology for 20 years, doing this kind of mindfulness practice. The longer I've engaged with the universe in this way, the more I've become convinced profoundly that there is this caring dimension, the lunar dimension of the universe, that is present all the time, everywhere, and is always trying to care for us. And the more we awaken to this and invite the caring aspect of the universe into our lives, the more we are able to let in the medicine that's trying to come to us. And so this will become more relevant for today's video blog, and as we go here, as I start to share the example that I want to go into, which the intention here is not to do like really long presentations that are exhaustive, but to just try to, in 20 or 30 minutes, give you a sense of an encounter with an archetype or a few archetypes, and how I experienced them, how I connected with them, how I saw the archetype and found meaning in it, how I took medicine for myself from that encounter. And so today's example, today's multidimensional moment, really is about the experience of a film that I went to last night and how it impacted me last night, and then also how I sat with that film this morning and started to look at the astrology for the film. And I think I want to begin by showing the trailer for the film. So the movie that I saw is called Seymour: An Introduction. It's a documentary film about Seymour Bernstein, a famous pianist and composer that I knew nothing about. I had no idea about this guy, zero. All I saw was a description of the film, that it was directed by Ethan Hawke, and I think it's got like 100% positive rating on the Rotten Tomato evaluation scale, which doesn't mean a whole lot to me, but it indicated it was probably going to be somewhat good. And I just wanted to go see a movie that's, seemed like it had a good chance of being a nice experience with me and my wife Sonia. And I didn't have huge expectations going into the movie, but as soon as it began, I was really profoundly impacted by the film. It was a big movie yoga experience for me, as Tav Sparks calls the practice of going into a movie as a spiritual discipline. For me, every time I watch TV, every time I watch movies, every time I listen to music, it's a yoga. It's a spiritual practice for me. It always has been that, I think, on some level for me. But it's become even more that in the last 20 years, where I learned from Rick Tarnas how to appreciate the film and the artistry of the film or the music in its own right, enjoy it on that level. There's the inherent pleasure of good music, good films, but then you add the additional element of the pleasure that can come by seeing that the true artist behind all arts is the universe itself, and that the longer you study astrology, it just becomes really obvious that there is the artist behind the artist, which exists on some kind of spiritual level and is informing the art actively. And it seems to be the case that there is an artistic dimension. Just as I said, there's a caring dimension that's omnipresent everywhere, all around us, all the time, in all things, in all relationships. There is a caring aspect, trying to do its caring thing. There is also an artistic dimension of the universe that is always present everywhere, in every aspect of our lives, trying to create art everywhere out of everything. And that artistic, active force of the universe, I think, is what people who identify as artists, and I feel we all are artists on some level, we are participating in the artistic dimension of the universe. And so I feel like the people that identify as artists, though, and really are actively trying to cultivate art in their lives, are people who appreciate this. They appreciate that there is something at work moving through them that they get the joy of participating in, where they get to see and experience the universe itself making use of themselves as an artist to be a channel, basically, a channel of this artistic force, and the way in which a human being can amplify and take that artistic force, bring your own the artist's own personality to the work of art, the artist's own gifts, their own unique style, their own unique quality of creativity. That's more the solar aspect of creativity, the unique stamp of each individual artist, and how they draw out and co-create with the universe that force of beauty. And so, having said this, it's all relevant to the theme of the movie, which is about an artist, Seymour Bernstein, and his journey as an artist. This is a film made late in his life. It was made when he was 85, and now he's 87. That right there is interesting. I haven't studied the details of how this film came to be, but that the movie was being made as he was 85. Of course, that's a Uranus cycle. That's when Uranus returns to where it was when he was born, which for Bernstein, Uranus was at 1 degree Aries when he was born, and currently Uranus is between, it's at 16 to 20 degrees Aries, but when this film was being made, it would have been solidly within the 10 degree conjunction to its natal position, which is often a huge, it's obviously a once-in-a-lifetime transit where there's this quality of the end of a whole brilliant creative cycle and the beginning of a whole nother brilliant creative cycle. Brilliancy is the Uranus energy. Uranus is that improvisatory, innovative, electric, exciting energy. And when it returns, if someone is fortunate enough to live to be about 84 years of age, there is often some kind of quality of that life being summarized with regard to its unique, brilliant, innovative qualities. And so, anyway, here's an artist having a film made about him late in his life, and it's all about his own philosophy and approach to art, and also other themes that I'll go into. But I want to show the trailer for the film in case you haven't seen it. There's different ways of approaching the material that I'm about to cover here. If you want to see the movie without having any influence on your experience of the film, which is what I had last night. I knew nothing about it. I hadn't even seen the trailer, and I went in and it just like really impacted me. And so I want everybody to be able to have that experience. So obviously, turn off the video, go see the movie, and then watch it. Other kinds of people don't mind seeing the trailer. Other kinds of people may not even watch the movie, but they're interested in tuning into the basic vibe of the movie. And so, there'll be spoilers. This is not the kind of movie that has a lot of plot spoilers, but I'll be covering the kind of basic themes of the movie. So if you don't want to have any of that spoiled for you, just wait until you see the movie, then come back and watch what I have to say. And so, having said that, let's watch the trailer together here for Seymour, an introduction.
I remember your Alice Tully Hall recital very well.
The Tully Hall had just opened. I was a total wreck.
But Seymour, you were a great player. You were an amazing player. You got fabulous reviews.
I didn't tell anyone, and I arranged a farewell concert. And that was the last concert I ever played.
So did you think in the end that you found your creative identity as a teacher?
A dream. That was better than mine. You're not allowed to play better than I do.
My friend invited me over to dinner, and Seymour Bernstein was sitting next to me, and I immediately felt kind of safe around him. I decided to confide with him that I've been performing with a crippling stage fright. The bottom line of the conversation, most artists are not nervous enough.
Well, this is one of the greatest pieces that was ever written. It's so gorgeous. The most important thing is to inspire an emotional response for all aspects of life. Music and life interact. Through its language, we become one with the stars. Now here it comes, one of the biggest climaxes in all of music.
He showed me what a musician could be.
Most people don't tap the God within.
Sometimes I think that playing life more beautifully is what I'm after.
That's how life is. It has conflicts, pleasures, harmony, and dissonance. The same thing occurs in music.
So there's the trailer. I was very moved by this film. I guess because the themes of the film are so central to... Oh, what's happening here? Sorry. I don't know why I was doing that. I think it started another video, that's why. Okay, so the themes of the film are themes that I've thought about a lot, and I want to explore a few of the key ideas in the film and key motifs of the film as they relate to Seymour Bernstein's chart, which I've pulled up here, and I want to look at Ethan Hawke's chart, and also want to say briefly something about the collective alignments, because what's striking about this story, one of the things that's striking about my experience of going to the film, and this has happened to me many times on this astrological path, is, I was looking at movies that we could see, and, I try to read a little bit about the movie. I try to be tuned into what's happening in movies and just there's so much movies that to me I would be just completely uninterested in, but I try to look for the ones that stand out that I'm drawn to, and I trust that the movies that I'm drawn to are the movies that are trying to come into my life as medicine. And so I'm looking for a film to be a medicine experience for me, and I trust that that can happen and often does happen for me, and I find that it happens when I trust my intuition and just let myself be attracted and let something be attracted into my life. And so that's what I did last night, even though I was like really tired and I didn't know if I even wanted to see a movie. I actually was looking for a shorter film so that if I wasn't that into it, I wouldn't have to be a very long, painful experience. And so this was a short documentary. It was attractive on that level, but also the themes seemed to resonate for me. The themes about music. I've always been a lover of music, as most people, I think, but I've also been drawn to classical music. My father and my family generally were lovers of classical music, and it was, not that we studied it or anything, but it was a part of our lives, something that I always enjoyed as a young person. And then when I went to college, I was drawn to going to as many performances as I could. And, it's not been a huge part of my life, classical music, but I love it when I get to experience it. And so I was drawn on that level, but it was also a film about a teacher and how he teaches. And I could tell from the little write-up that I read that it was an appreciation for a great teacher, and it's something that I care about, trying to be a good teacher myself, and so I wanted to see it on that level as well. And another reason why I was drawn to it is just that for me, in the last few years, I've been really exploring myself as an artist, and I think you all know as members of this website that I've communicated that for me the whole project, the websites, the membership, the business aspect of it, the writing that I do for the website, the emails that I send out, my interactions with everyone, for me the whole thing, on some level, it's not exclusively this, but for me, I try to experience the whole thing as art, and that I'm trying to be an artist in the decisions that I make, the choices that I make, how I relate to the website or to the membership or any aspect of it. I'm trying to let it be my own form of artistic creativity. And at the same time, I'm trying to be a good teacher and hopefully inspiring and hopefully empowering to people. And I hope I'm a multidimensional website person. and so, but anyway, I've been thinking a lot about how to own the fact that I'm an artist and help other people own that they are artists. And this film is all about that, all about an artist who loves being an artist, so much so that he stopped doing it professionally out in public so that he could focus more on his passion for becoming the best artist that he could be. And that raises all kinds of questions, like what is it to be the best artist you can be? Because it starts to raise the question of like the super ego and that part of us that judges us and kind of pushes us to be better. And there's a way in which you can become a better artist that's kind of self-loathing and self-criticizing and super ego-based. And there's ways of being an artist that are more relaxed, more joy-filled, more love-filled. And my sense with Seymour Bernstein is that he's an artist who just loves his art so much, and he loves the experience of his art when he is at his best. And he knows the difference between what it feels like to be his best and not at his best. And that is something that I can relate to. And for me as an astrologer, like when I'm doing something like this, I know what it feels like to be prepared to a level that feels really satisfying to me, and what it feels like to feel like I'm, kind of scrambling to find my words or know what to say. And so I can relate on that level to Seymour. And so let me bring his chart up here. Maybe I should put it on this larger chart here. Well, no, I'm just going to leave it here for the sake of time. hopefully you can see the main thing that I want to point out about Seymour is that he's born with a Venus-Saturn opposition. There's lots of other cool things about his chart that correlate to things that I experienced in the film, and also I spent some time reading some of his writings this morning and watched a little bit of an interview with him, and I took some time. This is often what I do after watching a film that really impacts me. I'll look up the director's chart. I'll look at the person the film's about. In this case, if it's like a documentary, and then I'll sit with it. I'll kind of try to feel into what are the essential qualities that are there, and then often I won't look at the chart until I've got a kind of general sense of what I expect to find in the chart. Other times, though, sometimes I'll go to a film and just, it's so enriching to watch a movie when you already know the actor's charts or the director's charts. It doesn't necessarily interfere with the experience to know in advance. There's a certain joy and fun in looking at the charts afterwards, where you have your kind of guesses about what are going to be there. And I think both are valid. Having the chart, knowing the chart beforehand and afterward, both are interesting, and I would recommend experimenting with both. And probably you'll find that sometimes one way is better for you and sometimes another way. But I guess you want to be true to yourself for each movie. As I go into a movie, sometimes I'm like, I got to look at the chart beforehand because I want to have it in my awareness, because it adds to the awareness of the art of the universe that's coming through the film or the TV show or the novel or whatever it happens to be. Like, I just bought a book about Mark Twain coming to San Francisco at age 27, and I'm reading the book and I'm getting excited about like looking at Mark Twain's chart and his transits. And in this case, I didn't feel like I had to start looking at his chart ahead of reading the book. I'm reading it and then I'm going to go to the charts. Other times, I can remember when I saw the film The King's Speech, I wanted to know the chart in advance of the character that I was going to be, or the person that I was going to be learning about. And so I looked up King George VI's chart before going into the movie and seeing the Sun, Pluto, Mercury alignment that King George VI was born with, knowing the theme of the movie. It deepened the experience of the film, knowing the chart as I was watching it. And so anyway, those are some asides here, but I want to now focus on the Venus-Saturn archetype, which Seymour's born with. It also happens to be in the sky collectively. You can see here, Venus opposite Saturn, 5-degree opposition, coming into a T-square with Neptune, 9 degrees squared to Neptune or so here. So it's a broad Venus-Neptune-Saturn T-square, but really tight Venus-Saturn opposition. And anything under 6 degrees is a real strong opposition. And Seymour is born with it, and then it was amazing to find that the director, Ethan Hawke, is also born with a strong Venus-Saturn opposition, exact, and it's on his sun with Jupiter. And so I may say a little bit about Ethan Hawke in a moment, but I want to focus on Seymour Bernstein and how that Venus-Saturn opposition that he's born with relates to some of the themes that are obvious in the film. One of the key things about the movie is it's about the disciplined professional artist, and he's such a disciplined, committed artist, and I think it's a different kind of discipline than like a obsessively self-critical type of discipline. It's not a perfectionistic discipline. It's more a kind of passionate discipline that comes from a love of the beauty that can come from mastery. So Saturn is wisdom and maturity and mastery. And here is a film about a master artist, a wise, older, mature artist who has come to their mature philosophy about how to be an artist. And it's a film that's all about the wisdom of a mature artist talking about his craft. And so Seymour Bernstein in his exact Venus-Saturn opposition, you see in the film that he struggles with being a professional artist in the first part of his career, and he struggles with fear. Saturn is fear, also the Saturn is fear, and also it has to do with our career, our profession, our area of work. And so the working artist is a Venus-Saturn theme. And like trying to gain your financial securities, Saturn, through art is a Venus-Saturn impulse. And here is someone whose whole life was devoted on a professional level to being an artist, and also a classical artist. Saturn is the traditional, the classical, the old. Here's someone that is just totally committed to art and music that came into its prominence, a certain kind of art that's more considered old. You know, it's part of a classical tradition, as opposed to someone that's more attracted to modern art or current art, which isn't to say that he's not a modern artist, because he's also committed to being to not just doing the work of traditional artists from the past, but creating his own compositions. It's one of his teachings is that he feels that it's really sad that a lot of pianists on the professional level don't also compose, and vice versa, that composers don't play as much, that there's that division between like the composer, the writer who's doing the writing, and then the performer who does the performing. For him, they are totally linked, and he feels that it's really important to be doing both. Anyway, you'll see in the film, if you haven't seen it, that one of the key themes is stage fright and working with fear as an artist. And that line in the trailer where Ethan Hawke is talking about how he acknowledged that he was dealing with stage fright, and Seymour Bernstein's response was that artists should really be more afraid. And what he's saying there is when an artist is so committed to their art and they experience a very, very high level of what's possible when you achieve mastery in that art form, you know what it's like to feel the frustration of basically the comparison between what you're doing when you're at your peak performance, when you've really done your homework, so to speak, and what it feels like when you're not at that level. And we could explore a whole lot here about, you know, Saturn being judgment and Venus is art, and how you can judge yourself and punish yourself so ruthlessly that it interferes with your art. And this is another theme that Seymour Bernstein looks at in the film, and it has to do with his experience of being, well, his experience of having to deal with critics as a pianist, and how sad he is about the state of music criticism, and how debilitating it was for him as an artist to go out on stage and know that he could be ruthlessly criticized. And it became so debilitating for him, the fear of being judged as an artist, that and it also so interfered with his love of the music, where basically he found he was devoting so much of his time to preparing to perform, because he felt like he had to be at such a high level, that he was losing touch with his joy of practice and his joy also of composing. And so he made a conscious decision to stop performing at I believe it was the age of 51. Yes. And he describes that decision to stop performing publicly as a liberation. And here it's worth just mentioning the power of Uranus in his chart. He has a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, a Mars-Uranus square. So basically that Jupiter-Uranus, you see it in the quality of like the celebrated genius, where Jupiter expands the brilliant, innovative genius quality of Uranus, and Jupiter celebrates, but it also makes things really big. So that he has this kind of rebellious freedom orientation that's particularly strong, and also where there's something here about Jupiter as the high culture arena of the classical performer. And that theme of the high culture arena of classical music, and then Uranus coming in, the impulse towards freedom, the impulse towards breaking out of the constraints of the higher culture arena, and just being true to the art, being true to art itself, and his kind of rebel warrior energy. That's the Mars Uranus being so strong, and he was so committed. That's Saturn, the Saturn commitment to Venus, to art. The loyalty to art is Venus Saturn. He's so loyal to his art, and simultaneously he's so oriented towards freedom that he stopped performing and committed himself to teaching and his own practice. And you see in the film that he basically becomes like an ascetic yogi, just living this very simple life where he gets to practice as much as he wants, which is how he finds his highest experience of the art, is by being so diligent at working at it that he experiences ever new heights of the joy of artistic creativity. And so just a few of the Venus-Saturn themes besides what I've mentioned like the professional artist, the disciplined artist, the older artist, fear and art coming together, the classical music theme. Another thing that he points out is that there's a gift in the superego drive to be better. There's a loving aspect of the inner critic, or the guilt that we feel when we don't practice enough. It's a guilt that's actually associated with a love of the highest forms of art, in terms of, again, this idea that the guilt drives you to be more disciplined, which ultimately gives you more satisfaction, where the discipline brings more satisfaction when it's not this kind of tortured discipline. And you see in his work this theme of like love and discipline coming together, the loving authority figure, the loving critic. And I was reading one of his pieces on music criticism, and seeing how he doesn't disparage criticism as a bad thing. He just expects any music critic to be also compassionate and loving. And so when he's teaching and bringing a critique to a student, it's coming in this real loving way that also behind it, I think, there's this kind of love and celebration of the potential art that's trying to come through, that's not this kind of shaming, judging criticism. And I'll just mention that I saw this other film called Whiplash about another art music teacher that won the Oscar for Best Actor, J.K. Simmons' role. And I'll just mention that he also has Venus-Saturn, a broader conjunction, but it's a Saturn-Pluto square on Venus. Venus, Saturn, Pluto, those three together, it's the Saturn-Pluto combination that can be the most ruthless judge. And it's interesting that J.K. Simmons has this Saturn-Pluto. He plays this incredibly demanding, kind of sadistic teacher. And the contrast of J.K. Simmons' kind of Venus-Saturn energy compared to Seymour Bernstein's is really remarkable. Anything else here? I mentioned the themes of like mastery and art. He's just so committed to being a master, not in a perfectionistic way, but in a way where he knows that there's a potential within his own capacities to channel art that is much more satisfying when he's committed at a certain level. And so that's the Venus-Saturn archetype, the mature artist, the artist as master, the gifts that come through discipline, and anything else that I want to say here? I think I've gone on long enough for the first Multidimensional Moments video blog. I hope you're getting the idea of what I'm wanting to do here, and I'll be doing more of these in the future. And so you guys have a good one, and have a great weekend.